2007 or so. And we've got all these people, we've got all these beasts here, and they're strong. And I tried to do my entry-level plyometric work on some floor work with them. And the stronger the athlete, the faster they went down. Knees, lower back, ankles, on baby stuff. Baby stuff. I mean, we're not talking anything hard. We're talking about standing in place and with knees straight, being able to bounce down the floor using just your calves. No way. Their tissues couldn't take it. They hadn't done anything like it. Or we had 15 minutes on the schedule, for example, how bad mobility was. We had 15 minutes on the schedule to stretch. Nothing hard, nothing intricate, nothing intense. Just an easy, basic stretch. Get them loosened up for the day. That stretch took an hour and a half to complete. And it was an hour and a half, Tim. It was an hour and a half. There were bodies lying everywhere. It was like I was in Vietnam or we were filming a war movie. And I turned to my staff. I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? They failed warm up.
Now, in fairness, this stuff is really, you would look at it and just like my friend who's like, what is this Jane Fonda bullshit? And I'm like, hey man, why don't you try this for 10 minutes? And it is really taxing. Yeah. I mean, I remember doing one of the stretching routines, which I'll note, I think is might be of interest to people, is I'm hitting each once per week. So there's one that is front split focused, so very hamstring focused. There's one that is bridge focused, and another that is middle
adductor.
Split, adductor and middle split focused.
Inside of the thigh.
And the point that you make is doing this twice a week will not double your progress. It will cut it in half. So you're only really hitting each of these once per week. I mean, there are different daily limber protocols, but I remember doing at the very beginning of one of these workouts, I believe it was, it was absolutely the front split workout, a shit ton of calf raises with like
I remember you moaning about that.
Like different foot placements. It's like, okay, 180 calf raises later of different variations. I was like, okay, and I'm only 3 minutes into this hour-long stretch sequence. And I know we're bouncing all over the place because I want to give people kind of a buffet sampling of how this training differs. But one of the reasons I respect the programming that you put together and the nuance that you bring to this is that the observation then is, and correct me if or you can elaborate on this if I'm missing something, but that a lot of the hamstring flexibility issues or limitations that people perceive are at least in part due to lower leg issues, including the Achilles.
Huge amount of them.
Yeah, including the Achilles. So you in this particular progression in the beginning, you're engorging and then stretching the insertion point basically around the heel, and then again at the knee, and working your way up to the hamstrings. And there's an athlete who's been on the podcast, Amelia Boone, one of the most successful obstacle course racers in the world, and she's basically pointed out the same thing. And she said, yeah, you can take someone who's really inflexible in their hamstrings, have them roll out their feet with, say, a lacrosse ball or something like that, and all of a sudden they gain 2 inches in their descent with the hamstrings.
Because it's all connected. You know, we found by accident, so we never intended this, and we're very methodical. So part of what maybe helps people to understand the layers of complexity that I approach training with is that for years my bread and butter was to produce best athletes in the country. That was my job. In order to have a job, I had to produce some of the best athletes in the world, and we had to do it from scratch. And so it becomes an issue of, one, an injured athlete is no good to the United States. Right? It doesn't matter how talented he is, how strong he is. If he can't go out on the floor with the USA on his chest, we can't win a medal with him, so he's got to be healthy. And then the second caveat that goes with that is that we have to, so where I have to describe it correctly. All right, we're trying to find a way to make the best better. Because these athletes are already the best on the planet, and you're going head to head with other athletes who are the best. So then how do you find a way to make something which is almost already perfect even closer to perfect? And if you do what everybody else is doing, right, without kind of going out into the jungle, if you will, into Indian country and learning new things, then you can't get a leg up on your competitors. The way knowledge, now if we have PhDs who come through and this and that, and we always give them major shit, because the way people think the world works is that they do their research, they write about it, they publish it, we learn about it, and we implement it with our athletes. That is not how the way the world works. The way it really works is you've got high-level, world-class coaches who are super bright, decades of experience. Just my last senior athlete alone, I had 16,000 hours into training Alan. 16,000 hours spread over 12 years.
What is Alan's last name?
Bauer.
Yeah.
Bauer. So, yeah, you guys got to celebrate Alan. He, OU just won national NCAA championships. Again, major blowout by the largest margin in NCAA history.
Wow. That was, as of this recording, very recently.
Yeah, that was just the weekend of the 15th. Mm-hmm. So I think we're scheduled here to come out sometime in May. But yeah, very, very big deal. But, to go back to the other, so we're looking for an edge. And so we don't know why some things work. We just know it works. And I started getting notes from therapists around the world because, for example, therapists are taught that they should have a neutral spine. You should have a neutral spine. I was getting people from around the world, and they were writing me, but athletically, I'm sorry, I'll be direct, but neutral spine athletically is the biggest load of horse shit I've ever heard in my life. You can't run with neutral spine. You can't throw with neutral spine. You can't climb with neutral spine. I can't swim. I can't do anything with a neutral spine except lay in a box, dug in a hole, and they get ready to bury me. I mean, that's the only thing I can do with it. There's nothing athletically I can do with a neutral spine. So we know just automatically to produce athletes, we're not going to do neutral spine because torso-wise, there's only two movements. I can go from an arch, snap to a hollow, or I can be hollow and snap back to extension to the arch. Those are the only two movements the torso is capable of athletically. Everything else is a variation off that. We can add rotation with some throws and some this and that, but that's all there is. So we spend a lot of time building power for that. And these therapists around the world started taking our really gentle introductory work, and they trained it on themselves first. And they're like, just real similar to what you said, Tim, I feel better than I have in years, coach. I feel better in years. And this is completely different from what I was taught in school.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but maybe we could use an example that we've discussed before, which was a new movement for me, which is the Jefferson curl. And
yeah, they're having some fun with that. So we look at Jefferson curl right now. So it wasn't that many years ago that if you squatted below parallel, it was heresy. It was heresy. If you went below parallel, the knees couldn't possibly adapt to it. You're just going to blow your knees. Your kneecaps were going to just pop off the front, right? It's going to be shrapnel, knee shrapnel. And now, yeah, but everybody accepts now that, you know what? There is nothing wrong with the body being exposed to its natural range of motion. Now, do you have to build it up gradually? Yes, obviously you do. But the Jefferson curl falls into that. So, gosh, how do we explain Jefferson curl?
You want me to I can give it a shot.
Yeah, you'll be better at it.
This would be a good exam review for me anyway. So Jefferson curl is a gradually rounded, stiff-legged deadlift. That's the simplest way to visualize it. So if you're looking at an athlete from the side doing a Jefferson curl, they will most likely be standing on a box, holding onto an Olympic barbell right in front of their hip/legs. So it's just like the very top of a deadlift position. But when they start the descent, and it's elevated so that when you have plates on and whatnot, there's room for it. But when they come down, they're going to tuck their chin and then vertebra by vertebra round their back down all the way into the bottom position, where the objective would be, or one of the objectives would be, to get basically your wrists to the front of your toes, or at least
in a perfect world, if you're advanced enough.
Yeah, in a perfect world. And of course, doing this very gradually with supervised attention from somebody who knows what they're doing, and then reversing that, and again going from this sort of vertebra by vertebra rounding up until you end up in that top position and then repeating. Is that a fair description?
Fair description. Yeah, the easy is just think of it as a string of pearls, and we're just curling one pearl at a time. We've been having some fun with that one. So we have done Jefferson curls, I don't know, 12, 15 years now. Expected standard is body weight for us.
Note to people listening, do not try this with body weight right out of the gate.
No, don't. So, for example, one of our senior students in Australia, in his training, physical therapist, has his own clinic, doing really well. And he tried it with just the empty bar, the 20 kilo bar at first. Trashed him. He dropped all the way down to, I think, a kilo or two, right? Which is completely fine. And we'll talk about why in just a sec. And then he built up, and last time I checked with Mark over the course of, I don't know, I'm forgetting, there's too many students, but around 12 to 18 months, he built up to either 3/4 body weight or maybe up to full body weight now. And back feels better than it ever has. But the key there is people got to understand is that this was a gradual process over 12 to 18 months. It wasn't just go. Now we've got a very good, I'll throw Quinn out. I'm going to butcher Quinn's last name. Quinn's a PhD in physical therapy. Quinn Henoch does some really good work. And
how do you spell his last name?
Oh, you had to ask me that.
We can get it for the show notes.
Yeah, we'll get it for the show. We chat a lot on Facebook and that, and Quinn likes to stir the pot, if you will, stir up some shit. And he's experimented with Jefferson curl himself for, I think, going on about 3 or 4 years now, and feels wonderful. And he'll toss it out. And so one of the things that'll always be come up is, the McGill experiments, where they would take connective tissue from a pig cadaver and put it under such and such amount of strain. And if we put it in this position with this much load, it snaps. Okay, and everyone runs around and it's the sky is falling, oh my God, don't bend your spine, stay neutral. What everyone kind of missed, the big elephant in the room, was the pig was fucking dead. The tissue was dead. It can't adapt. It's dead. It's no longer living, and it wasn't exposed to very gradual loads so that there could be progressive adaptation, which is what our bodies are really good at. So they kind of overlooked all that. So if I take this completely unprepared tissue and I do this to it, it'll break. So some very interesting discussions right now. And obviously everyone's fine. We've got athletes doing great, adults who are doing wonderful, and the physical therapist will come around simply because it's healthy. Now they've got to understand, and other people who are listening should understand also, is that our weighted mobility work needs to be approached with a different mentality, a different level of intensity than conditioning work, because connective tissue has 1/10 the metabolic rate of muscular tissue. So it heals slower, it adapts slower. So you have to kind of come to the table with a very patient attitude, or as I consider myself, like I'm extremely impatient naturally. But I've learned, in order to get what I want and to go where I want to go, I've had to learn to be patiently impatient. Or if I give in to the urge, then I get hurt, athletes get hurt, we fall apart. And nationals and Olympic trials are every 4 years. Nationals are once a year. And you don't get another nationals. You don't get another Olympic trials if you blow it. You've got to be on point that day. So it teaches us, and our environment was actually a blessing, because it's very much practical. It's very much results oriented. There's no room for opinion. I think, I feel, I prefer. It works. It doesn't work. It produces results. It doesn't produce results. You are the best in the country. You aren't the best in the country. I mean, it's very clear. It's very clear, and it can't be argued with. And that was actually something when we segued into kind of the fitness world, if you will, where you come out of national team and everyone knows who the studs are. In the fitness world, though, everyone's proclaiming they're the stud. Everyone's proclaiming they're the national champion. And there's nothing to support it. There's no results. There's no great athletes. There's no great abilities that have been generated. There's just the marketing. And that was hard to wrap my head around, because a national team, that doesn't exist. You can't go to the Olympics and the guy who talks the loudest gets the medal. It doesn't work that way. I have the loudest voice, I'm champion.
I think that's national politics right now. Oh wait, no, never mind. Different topic, different podcast.
I did want to ask you how your visit to the White House, but I figure we'll save that one.
Yeah, we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, Tim went to the White House last week, guys, so I'll pick his brain for you later.
So I interrupted, but yeah, you get to the fitness world, and I mean another one of the differences that you pointed out for me, which I really liked, was that in the fitness world, it's exercise and diet, whereas in your world, it's always been eat and train, right?
Eat and train. Yeah, eat and train. Because if what the people are trying to do, and